Hello, everyone. We are excited to welcome George Finney, CISO, educator and best-selling author to the Advanced Persistent Threat in Cybersecurity LinkedIn group for an exclusive conversation about his latest book, Rise of the Machines, a Project Zero Trust Story. In this innovative cybersecurity narrative, George blends storytelling with practical guidance to explore the critical importance of zero trust in today's threat landscape. With the growing sophistication of APTs and insider threats, Rise of the Machines offers readers a fresh perspective on defending organizations by rethinking trust, identity, and level. Thank you, George.
Thank you all so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you all and hear questions from the audience. This is going to be cool.
Awesome. Thank you. My name is Aaron Stillwell. I am the owner of the APT and Cybersecurity Group. And helping me, like always, is the co-host is Alex Mavro. Alex
Hello,
is
everyone.
CISO at PNB Paribas and security at manager at Tetronics. Thank you, like always, Alex.
Thank you.
So the first question, George, I always like to throw out, I guess, for your book, what inspired you to tell a zero trust story through a narrative?
Oh my gosh, I love. There's a great book. If you haven't read it yet, it's called The Phoenix Project. It's about DevOps, and it tells the story about DevOps through a case study, if you will. And I thought, when I got the call to write the last book, Project Zero Trust, I sat down with my good friend John Kindervog. We've known each other for a long time. He's obviously the godfather of zero trust. And he was like, George, you're crazy. You can't do that. You just write the book the way everybody else would. And I'm like, no, we've got to make zero trust approachable.
Yes.
And that's one of the challenges we have in security, just in general. And I've heard from so many people since that last book came out, essentially 2.5 years ago. It makes it so that people new to security can see the big picture. It makes it approachable for folks coming into the help desk. It helps CIOs understand, what their role in zero trust is. I keep saying, if the security nerds in the room are the only ones that understand what zero trust is, right? Our zero trust projects are going to fail. We've got to make it an inclusive community effort, and telling it, making a story, telling it in a narrative format, it helps it stick. It helps people see what their different roles are in the journey, and it makes it relatable. So yeah, I mean, I love that approach. And the new book, Rise of the Machines, is just. It's just a sequel. It's kind of fun, but it was really inspired by some of the other successful, great books out there.
Yeah, I can see how important it is to write it, what you just mentioned, where your business partners have a clear understanding of the importance of zero trust and not just the technical aspects. So another good question, what are the biggest misconceptions organizations have about zero trust?
Yeah, so I mean, just right off the bat, zero trust is not a tool. It's not something you can go buy. It's not an architecture. I think there's a lot of conflation with architecture. There are certainly architectural elements, but the message that we try and reinforce is there is one definition of zero trust, right? I got it from the creator of zero trust. We don't necessarily bring all of our own random definitions of what zero trust is. There's one definition, and it's really simple. Zero trust is a strategy. It's a strategy for preventing or containing breaches by removing the trust relationships that we have in digital systems. It's all about removing that trust. But the reason that I think it's so important to start here is it's a strategy. What is a strategy for? Who is a strategy for? I'm a CISO. I'm a practicing CISO, and my job, as a CISO, is to own the strategy. Right, I've got to be able to figure out, however that's going to work in my organization, how to bring everyone together, get everybody on the same page, moving in the same direction, and operating off the same kind of principles. That's what a strategy does for me. Again, that's not something I can go out and buy. And again, I think thinking about how to motivate people, how to overcome communication issues, how to do project management, and all of the different things that you're going to end up doing in terms of increasing your maturity. Strategy is incredibly important, and it helps me as a CISO communicate my value more effectively to my leadership, to my board, because they all understand to do anything in any other part of the business,
Yeah.
you need a strategy. And I think Zero Trust is really the best and maybe only strategy out there when it comes to cyber.
It's good. I know I
I,
asked you a question.
yeah, I might have some questions. If I start off, let's say, can you explain what zero trust is for our audience who might be new in the concept? What that
Yes.
means? That's one of my questions. Why? Because sometimes our audience, it's not so technical, or sometimes they come from a different type of operation. Let's say roles, like
Yeah.
SOC, for example, and they don't know entirely about this. So if you can explain a bit, it will be great. And then I might have another question about your book, which might be interesting as well.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So Zero Trust was originally created or coined as a phrase by a gentleman named John Kindervag. He was the lead cyber analyst at Forrester Research. He wrote the seminal paper on Zero Trust back in 2010. It was called No More Chewy Centers. So you can Google that. You can it's free out there on the internet. I think Palo Alto Networks is usually the first link on Google. So don't go pay for it with Forrester. You can get it for free. But really, in that paper, right, going back to 2010, Kindervag proposed these 4 principles to help guide us in our zero trust journey. The first one is I think one of the most important. It's we got to align with the business. We've got to make security work seamlessly with the business. We got to understand how we make money, what the risk tolerances of our organization, and craft our security program around that. The second principle is this concept of deperimeterization. You might have heard it called microsegmentation. We do that in lots of different ways today with containerizing data, compartmentalizing. Right, that is really the design principle, is to focus on what's important to the business, the crown jewels, and you'd be amazed at how hard that is sometimes to define. And you focus on your defenses from the inside out, right? Not from the outside in, not like the castle wall where people can get inside and have free access to everything. The third principle is least privilege. So focusing on granular access control. Identity is really, really important to zero trust. It's one of the cornerstones that help us do what we need to do. And then finally, you got to log everything. So I can't do my job as a CISO if I can't answer the question, what happened after something happened? We've got to be able to quickly identify when things are happening. All of that is based on the operational excellence of logging everything. And that's a really challenging thing to do in practice, right? In the real world. It's also kind of expensive to log everything. A lot of people make trade-offs there, but you've got to really focus on what matters, because that feeds back into the feedback loop of, okay, how do we get better? Where are our gaps? That's zero trust at the very highest level, right? It's a strategy, but you've got to kind of go execute in these different pillars. You'll hear people say, with zero trust, you assume breach. That means that when I come to work as a CISO every day, I assume the bad guys are already in, and everything that I do is about preventing them from being even able to do harm, even though they might have compromised accounts, even though they might have gotten access physically inside the organization. So assuming breach, right, focusing on those 4 pillars is really what zero trust is all about.
Okay. And now I have maybe a question regarding your book, because we talk about rise of the machines. In my mind, it's like a rise of the robots or AI. And here maybe it comes like this. When we talk about the rise of the machines, how does artificial intelligence play a role in the evolution of the zero trust?
Yeah. So okay. So Rise of the Machines is a reference to Terminator,
Hmm.
right? So
I
I
know.
have a ton of pop culture references in all the books. I had somebody count up the pop culture references they thought, and I think they got up to 100. I think they're probably more than, I don't know, way more than that. Um, Even the name of the book, right? So uh, I think that right, AI is so important, right? We're really at the beginning of our journey when it comes to AI, and I think now is the most important time to make sure that we get security for AI right. Because if
Correct.
we
Yeah.
don't, right, again, Rise of the Machines, we're worried, seriously, about Skynet and the
Yeah.
potential
Correct.
for the impact that'll have on our world. If we can do security right from the beginning, I think we've got an incredible opportunity to make sure that doesn't happen. Um, and I think there's so many elements of AI that are out there, right? So in the book, Rise of the Machines, available June 10th on Amazon, it's every chapter is essentially a different aspect of
Hmm.
artificial intelligence, whether it's adversarial AI, whether it's AI in your security operations center, whether it's you're building your own AI LLM, or whether you're locking down cloud SaaS-based AI tools, or whether you're trying to work with your users and focus on endpoints to control their access to AI. There's so many different elements, right? And so we kind of try and narrow it down by focusing on one element per each chapter. Again, there's a story, and you get to see the characters interact. Um, but AI in the security operations space, I'll, I'll be honest. I'm a CISO. I'm not a vendor. I'm not here to sell any products. There's so much hype. I mean, that was one of the most challenging aspects of writing that particular chapter is
Hmm.
when you went and tried to kind of get down into the weeds. Well, maybe they were just adding an LLM on to interact as your Q&A feature of your existing product, but now it has AI. That's not really helping things. Um, there are certainly some, I think, products that are moving the needle and that are getting better and better. Not to say that they're all perfect, but things like Microsoft Copilot for Security, I think really is showing you some of the vision of what could be relative to how AI can accelerate our security operations. And I think things like that, again, today is the worst day that AI will ever be. Right, tomorrow it's going to be even better. It's accelerating exponentially. So we know that we're on a trajectory here. But really, when I think about AI, I think there will be a day soon
Yeah.
when AI will lead our zero trust implementations, right? It'll understand natively all the technical configurations and details and architectures, and how users interoperate with it, and understand all of the various identities, human or non-human identities out there, and it will be able to help us guide our organizations. It's really just a matter of time.
I think here Microsoft will, because already Microsoft already have in place zero trust, and I think they would like to do something with their AI. I think this is my what I'm seeing. If you check their website, it somehow it looks like they want to integrate already with the AI with the
Oh yeah,
Copilot.
yeah. I mean, shout out to Microsoft. They already have a zero trust
Yeah,
score
yeah,
implement, kind of embedded
correct.
into your Defender product. So if you're not leveraging that, that's a really nice place to start.
Yeah, I
Uh,
know.
but again, I think everybody's thinking the same thing, and it's a rush to get there. And I mean, I think we kind of need to take a step back and make sure we're doing it right.
Correct.
Which is why I wrote the book. But yeah, I think we're closer than we're ever been.
Do you think, in terms of governance, it's hard to implement zero trust? And if not, what are the challenges over there? Because I know there are some people or some organizations that they are facing some challenges in regards with this.
So, since Project Zero Trust came out in 2022,
Hmm.
I've gotten to kind of travel around the country talking to other CISOs, and I've asked them this question, right? For the ones that have said, my Zero Trust journey didn't go so well or maybe failed,
Yeah,
we kind of dug into that. Like, what were the big challenges that y'all ran up against? And I mean, the number one, I mean, it might be 100%, but the number one reason that folks Zero Trust projects failed wasn't because budget. It wasn't because
yeah, that
technology.
was the one that I know as well.
Yeah, it was politics.
Yeah,
It was
correct.
people.
Yeah,
And
correct.
I think, again, this comes back to the book. Helping educate folks when it comes to security is really, one of our chief jobs, right? I think helping IT folks or helping developers or helping, business leaders understand, what the risks are and how we can help with them. It's not necessarily a trade-off between security or productivity or usability. We want to find ways to have a win-win. And again, I think there's so much hype or buzzwordiness or about zero trust that I think a lot of those other leaders, they see all the massive amounts of marketing that's out there, and they kind of dismiss zero trust as a fad, or there are other priorities that we need to focus on today. Um, and so I think getting out in front of that and helping break down those silos, again, that's why I wrote the book the way I did, is to help bring people into the conversation, and kind of break down those barriers so that we can, both, help the business achieve its goals while kind of tailoring security. I like to say, zero trust isn't about, preventing what goes wrong in a business. We're actually focusing solely on what has to go right, and we're preventing everything else, like a safe list, if you
Yeah.
will.
So do you see, George, do you see the business partners, are they seeing it as a negative impact to them if they do zero trust? Is that what the politics you're referring to?
Well, again, I think in every organization has some siloing to some extent,
Yeah.
and you've got to protect your turf. You've got to make sure that if you're a CTO, you have to make sure you've got your narrow focus and those things.
Yeah.
Your yearly goals, your whatever is driving your bonus, right? Those are the things you care about. And as security practitioners, we think a little differently, right? We think about the entire organization. How does everything
Correct.
tie in together, and how do we make all of that work together well? And honestly, I think I actually learned this at RSA last week. And I agree with. I was on a panel with several folks, and actually, I think with AI, there's a really great use case to say, oh my gosh, security has a seat at the table, because there are a lot of organizations out there that are slow rolling their AI adoption because they're so concerned about security and
Of
protecting
course.
their data.
Yep.
I think as a CISO, right, I never stopped to think like, oh wow, actually this is a really good sign for us, and it's an opportunity to help folks be able to feel comfortable about adopting AI, right? Because all of those silos want to use AI in their own ways. I think we can be an enabler if we can help them and tell their story and say, like, look, we're going to partner with y'all to make this go right. We're going to make sure that this is secure before we roll it out. That's a really compelling story to tell because it's the win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's also another problem. I think some other CISO, they're afraid to talk at the board level. That's
Yeah.
something
That's actually I was going to question. I was going to say this. How do you effectively communicate zero trust principles to the board without overwhelming them with the jargon?
Yeah, I wouldn't bring up any jargon.
Yeah.
I, I mean, again, I think starting like, look, we have to have a strategy uh, for security, and using analogies to helping folks Whether, I like to, I work for a university, so, football is big here in Texas.
Oh yeah.
And if I can talk about my role as a coach,
Yeah.
right? Zero trust is my strategy for winning, just like, some football teams might use the West Coast offense or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Like, tell me more about that. All right, well, here's the defense, here's the offense, here's how we organize things. Suddenly, I'm the coach, right? It's not my responsibility to be on the field playing the game, right? Those are the folks out there, on the front lines doing the hard work.
Of
We
course.
want to make sure we've got a game plan. We want to
Yes.
make sure that we're drilling them on the right things to make a difference, right? We want to be looking at the tape and seeing what the adversaries are doing and coming up with plan, like, oh, okay, your role as a coach and you got this great strategy. I think that really resonates with business leaders.
Yeah.
I would like to touch a bit some basics from zero trust, and here I might say, how does zero trust change the traditional perimeter based security model, and why is that shift important today? Because people are mixing sometimes part of the zero trust with some other frameworks or some other things that or standards, even though.
Yeah. So again, zero trust isn't a tool or an architecture, although those are certainly tactics that you'll deploy
Mhm.
at your different organizations. So again, being new here to the UT system, right? Everybody kind of has their own way of doing stuff, and I'm not here to come in and say y'all all have to adopt SASE, and that's zero trust, and that's the way we're going to solve things. I think instead, right? I could say the same thing about, hey, we all have to do microsegmentation now,
Yeah.
and yeah, I know that's going to take 2 or 3 years to figure out and get all the changes.
It depends of the infrastructure, to be honest.
Exactly, right. It depends on the unique elements of the business.
Yeah,
So,
correct.
I was just on our zero trust working group for the CSA this morning, and we talked about, hey, well, how does this mean? What does this mean in practice? And there is a maturity model when it comes to zero trust. The CISA has developed their own kind of assessment methodology,
Oh,
which
nice.
you can use to measure where you're already at in terms of zero trust maturity. And you can
Okay.
use that as a guide, right? So again, I'm not coming in to say, the number one thing I have to do right now is microsegmentation, because I want to accelerate our security program as quickly as we can. And maybe there's other low-hanging fruit that I can, show a number of big wins in the next 6 months that would get me a lot more maturity than focusing on one big, like, architectural concept like microsegmentation.
It's
So,
similar to, I mean, from what I hear, it's similar to NIST, the NIST maturity level.
yeah, so I love NIST. I would say the big differentiator to me is the NIST framework, right?
Yeah, correct.
It's not a strategy, right? Being compliant with the NIST framework is not, it's not going to help the human. So I draw the analogy that NIST framework and other great frameworks out there are more like looking at a cross section of an airplane, right? So you could look at the cross section, you can quickly see like the major systems or components that you have to have a complete airplane, right? You need propulsion, you need navigation, you need communication, probably storage, right? All of those things that go into what. But what's missing when you look at a cross section of an airplane? The people. Like, how a pilot flies a fighter jet is going to be very different from how a pilot flies a commercial airliner. You've got to tailor your approach. How often do you have to do maintenance? How do you do communication with the ground? All of those things, right, go into how you operate a plane or a business, and the strategy has to be custom tailored to that specific type of airplane. Just like with your cybersecurity zero trust strategy, you've got to tailor it specifically to your organization. And I think, again, the most important part of zero trust are the people, right? Zero trust is a strategy. You've got to get everybody working together towards the same goal. Just like you train a commercial airline group to do something very differently than you would have in the Air Force, for fighter jets, right? That's the key difference to me. Frameworks are great in terms of making sure you've got a complete program, and that helps you eliminate blind spots or any gaps. But nobody thinks that compliance is an effective strategy for preventing breaches. We know that zero trust is, right. That's the difference, is because we're focused on the people and helping them develop a sustainable program to keep that organization secure.
In terms of the human element in zero trust, because we didn't touch this part, while zero trust focuses heavily on technology, the human element often seems like the weak link. Let's say this is true, to be honest. How does zero trust address the human factor, particularly when it comes to insider threats or compromised identities?
Well, I thank you for saying that, because I'm going to get up on my soapbox for a second. I personally, we have this unofficial motto in the cybersecurity industry. It's "People are the weakest link." I think that statement is incorrect, and I think a better way of saying it would be "People are the only link in our organizations."
Okay.
Right? So we talk about like people, processing and technology, as though those were equal slices of a pie, when people are the ones that build the technology and configure the technology and use the technology. People are the ones that create the processes and follow the processes or not. It all comes back down to people. And when you sit down, again, if you're a CISO talking to the board or the president of your organization, if you said to them, "People are the weakest link, we got to get rid of all the people. It's the only way to be secure," they're going to be like, "What the heck, George? People are the most important part of our company. People are our greatest asset." You're totally out of alignment with the business at that point. And I think, again, people are the most important part of zero trust. People are the only link when it comes to security. And so I start with education.
That's the first program, to be honest.
So, I mean, the first thing that I did at my new job is to get as many people certified in zero trust, right? I like the Cloud Security Alliance's CCZT certification, but I've educated like 20% of our security population at this point in the first year. And again, that makes it sustainable. It improves communication about zero trust and zero trust related projects or initiatives. Right, I think that helps us translate out of the business. Not to say, again, back to your point, Alex. What about rogue insiders? What about compromised accounts? Like, that's how people get in.
Yeah.
And we're doing things like background checks. We're working with human resources. Again, security can't just be what the security guys on the security team do. Every again, going back to the book, part of the team in Project Zero Trust includes human resources.
Correct.
They've got to play a role, right? So when you hear stories like last year, when a cybersecurity company accidentally hired some North Koreans because they did some deep fakes.
I know story.
Oh, okay. Well, are we thinking about zero trust in our human resources pipeline? Is human resources journey? Does security start after the person has been hired and you're doing the background checks, or do we start even before that when you're writing the job description, so you're not leaking potential data about how the company's technology is used, in the interview questions that the interviewer is asked, to not leak information, in actually doing reference checks and those kinds of things? How do you plan for AI deepfakes? How do you plan to review resumes knowing that the attackers are attaching malware to resumes to get into the organizations in the first place? We should be thinking holistically about zero trust, and I think that's part of where this conversation about architecture misses such a massive aspect of our overall business risk. And again, comes back to people.
I like that idea you talk about. It's not it's not about the technology. It's about really a cultural shift within the organization, right? And how important it is for the executives within an organization to do that cultural shift, to really understand it and kind of make those changes. And one question I know people are going to know is, how do I kind of start off, right? So they look at zero trust and they're like, all right, this looks fantastic for my organization. I know I need a cultural shift for this, but how do you recommend, because you probably get this question a million times too, is how
Yeah.
do, how do I how do I get my feet wet? How do I start off in the right direction?
I love this question. I actually just did a presentation for the CSA and Defense Acquisition University on your first 100 days of zero trust, right?
Yeah.
So, again, I'm in my first year, my new gig. So I've been thinking a lot about this. And so I'm going to go back to a coaching example. So legendary coach Bill Walsh of the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
I have to say, first of all, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. It's hard to be a Dallas Cowboys fan these days.
By the way, I'm from Washington, D.C., so there you go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I can't actually admit liking the 49ers, but Bill Walsh invented the West Coast offense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Great strategy. Well, most people don't realize he also invented this thing where coaches script the first 15 plays of their game. I think whether you're at your existing job and you're starting zero trust, or whether you're just brand new to your organization, you ought to plan out your first 90, 100 days at the organization.
Yes.
This is going to set you need to set expectations. You need to build relationships, right? There's been lots of other articles or books written about your first 100 days in an organization and how you ought to plan that out. You also have to start to integrate some of these zero trust concepts into your journey. I'm going to give another shout out to a great book. There was a book that came out, I believe, last year by General David Petraeus. The book is called Conflict. And Petraeus is a really great military historian. He took a look at all the modern wars that happened since World War II. And he looked at the strategic leaders that led, whether you were on the good guy side or the bad guy side, what really distinguished you as a strategic leader. And there were essentially 4 principles. And I think zero trust really aligns well with these 4 principles, right? You've got to be able to see the big picture, what new, weapons, have come along. How is warfare changing? Zero trust is a big picture, but you have to be able to communicate that big picture to all of the people inside your organization, right? You have to be able to communicate zero trust well. I think that starts with education, right? So in your first 100 days, you're building relationships, you're connecting with people, you're understanding capabilities, but also you've already got to start that communication process and educating folks inside your team as well as outside your team to be effective. The next thing that Petraeus talks about is the ability to execute. Okay, so how do you execute within zero trust? I give it away in the title. It's Project Zero Trust. Understanding project management skills, having a project management office, connecting with other project management offices inside your organization, whether IT or outside of IT, making sure those projects are planned well. I looked at some stats. Good project management can cut anywhere from 30 to 50% off of a project in terms of overall time and resource usage. So think about that. Maybe you've got a 2-year project that you could execute in a year if only you were focused on it and using good management techniques. And then finally, the last pillar is about iteration, right? Finding issues and changing your strategy as it evolves over time. So again, that goes back to that main principle: log everything. Make sure you're doing tabletop exercises or penetration tests. And I think a lot of security leaders tend to look at those as like a grade, like, I got an A+ on my pen test report. That's great. I don't want any findings. Again, I'm of a different perspective. I'm assuming breach, right? I know there are bad things in my environment, and I need to take those lessons learned and bring them back to the business to help that build my case to
Yeah.
get the organization to change. And so having that comprehensive strategy, right? If I've scripted out my first 100 days or 15 plays or whatever it is, that's going to set me up for success over the next 2 or 3 years in order to effectively make that change. But recognize that you're not going to you're not going to be finished on day 100. You've got to have to be prepared for a marathon, not a sprint.
And if we speak about the impact of the rise of the machines on traditional security approaches, how has the introduction of advanced AI tools, because we see very often that the AI tools are advancing, even ChatGPT or Grok or any other AI tools, reshape traditional security paradigms like firewall, VPNs, because we see even over there zero trust implemented in the last time. Even on the VPN, I have seen some let's say projects over there, and intrusion detection systems as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in and mention one that you didn't mention. I think really one of the most pressing issues with AI adoption
Yeah.
today is data, right? I think CISOs have gosh, for 10 years, I've heard people say DLP is dead. And it's dead for a number of reasons.
Correct.
It was challenging to implement. We didn't have
very
good
hard to
data governance. The technology wasn't there to really effectively manage it. And now data is the number one issue that we've got to worry about with AI, because gosh, I don't know what data AI has access to, and what can it do, and what are the controls around it, and the permissioning, with Box and Dropbox and OneDrive, and we've let the users decide what permissions. We don't necessarily track them or retire those permissions if they're no longer appropriate, like we maybe manage in other systems. Oh my gosh, data is the new protect surface that we kind of forgot about when it comes to AI. And so how do I get out in front of that? And I think again, there's some great new tech that we saw at RSA that's out there that'll help us kind of better enforce policy. They're using AI to kind of help better classify your data, to augment maybe some of the existing DLP tools that you might have.
You can put some barriers, to be honest, over there.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I think data is really kind of the new front, if you will, in the cyber war that we've got to kind of hurry up and figure out, because we've been kind of ignoring it for a while because we were focused on ransomware and endpoints, right? So we've got to kind of shift our strategy a little bit, knowing that AI is going to force us to get better at data governance.
Alex, we've probably heard that before, where everyone is so excited about implementing AI within the organization, and and grabbing all this data from across the organization and dumping it in and running these modeling and all this data and having this ChatGPT instant access to everything, right? But then the security controls around it and securing that data is a whole different story, and it's got to be a worrisome topic. You're right, for CISOs and anybody else, of how are they going to manage this once they put it in.
Well, I know Project Zero Trust was consumed by an anonymous database, so it's already been used to train some AIs out there.
Really?
So like again, once it's out there, how do you manage it?
Yeah.
For me as an author, the best thing y'all can do as an audience is to click that button,
Yeah.
to QR codes, help support me as a writer so that I can keep doing these great books. So I'll just say, Project Zero Trust, in addition to being stolen by some AI companies, was just announced, inducted into the Cybersecurity Hall of Fame by the Cybersecurity Canon Group. So
Well, congratulations.
just I mean, there's only like 50 cybersecurity books in that Hall of Fame, and
Yeah.
I'm just so honored to be included in that list.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But I think Rise of the Machines, I've outdone myself. So, definitely check it out.
That's fantastic.
Is zero trust compatible with existing legacy systems, or does it require a complete overhaul of a company cybersecurity infrastructure?
I mean, I guess that depends on how bad your company's cybersecurity infrastructure is today. So no, I think, yeah, again, you can start doing zero trust today with the tools that you have already in place. It doesn't have to be I've got to go to the board to get another bazillion dollars to
Yeah, yeah.
do zero trust. Again, just looking at your firewall policies today. I'm hoping, for example, you've got a denial at the end of your list. But what we hear from some of my friends at firewall companies is, a lot of companies will let all outbound traffic go. They don't do any outbound filtering. Um, so rewind a little bit. Remember SolarWinds and their incident?
Oh yeah.
Well, guess what? If you had blocked outbound access, I mean, was there ever any reason why your SolarWinds servers needed to talk randomly to any server on the internet? Probably not. But again, this is something you could have done with your existing firewall. You didn't need to re-architect your entire organization, and blocking outbound traffic to only permitted sites would probably get you a big win. Again, when re-architecting your network is probably a non-starter, or changing every IP address of it, right? Those things I think you get mired down in conversations where I think there are other really easy wins that you can get with just hardening your endpoints configs that you can get from kind of having the right tools in the right places.
Alex, did you want to go? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I might have a question in regards with security and privacy. I know that sometimes zero trust can help with this. And are there any ethical concerns surrounding AI and machine learning in zero trust, especially when it comes to data collection and surveillance? Because I know it is used also for this sometimes.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, how an AI company that uses personal information in their AI model can be GDPR compliant, for example.
Yeah.
Right. One of the main issues with GDPR compliance is I got to be able to forget about people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And once the model is trained, you can't necessarily get that data out of it. As an example of a privacy issue with AI and private data. So I think this is a huge challenge. One of the big challenges with generally speaking with AI is we don't have the kind of transparency to know why it's making certain decisions. And I mean, I think there's some ethical issues there. The one case that I always reference is there was a study where they were looking at cancer patients' MRI results, and they were using it to detect cancer, and they were they were getting really great rates at detecting cancer, but it turns out the AIs had figured out that the little watermark that showed like the type of MRI machine actually really mattered, because when your doctor is really concerned about you having cancer, they're going to send you to a specialist who used like the really high end, I guess, one that had good resolution, whereas the others had some other brand watermark on it. And that's how the AI was making the decisions. It wasn't about whether it was detecting cancer or not. It found a better way. It cheated in order to get there. And so, I'm concerned, generally speaking, about using AI tools that take people out of the loop, that don't allow us to really put some thought in, because we're not a part of the conversation. There's no observability to help the human figure that out. We know that we're going to have to compete with our adversaries in machine time, not real time. And so, how do we do that at scale while giving people insights and to be able to make educate? I think it's a much more complicated and challenging discussion than maybe just what the hype about AI is letting us have.
George, it's funny you mentioned that. A neighbor of mine, he works for NIH, and he does IT at NIH, and a great guy. And part of his job is taking millions of scans that they do at NIH,
Hmm.
and now they're starting to utilize AI modeling to look, to try to find and help the radiologist in detection. So the AI would be the first line of looking at something, and then obviously it would then go to the radiologist, but they're looking to augment and help the radiologist maybe detect something, because you could send a scan to two different radiologists, and honestly you get two different impressions sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
So uh, having that, but you're right. One of the things I did ask him is, man, how are you ensuring the PII or any of that data for security wise? And he's like, yeah, man, that's something where they're so excited about sometimes this and that. He goes, that's one of their main focus even before they did it. But you're right when you mentioned it. Is the AI model grabbing the right data? Is it trying to cheat its way to get that data?
yeah.
And also, is that data, just in case, is it secure enough where that data, the PII information is not getting out?
Well, and I think a really great use case is real-time deepfake detections, right? Some of the tools that are out there that are helping be able to detect deepfakes do give kind of a nuance, like why they're detecting. Is it the background noise? Is it repeatable patterns in the bit stream? Is it my face and movement, or my the way my hands move, or I'm blinking or not? Those things really do help. But I'll also say, like for LLMs, we haven't talked about this yet, but there is a thing called an AI firewall. Um, you put an LLM in the middle of your, as a proxy for your backend LLM in order to prevent people from being able to exfiltrate data. There's a great framework. So everybody has probably heard of the MITRE attack framework.
Oh, yeah.
They have MITRE has developed this thing called the Atlas framework. So they've focused in on the TTPs that specifically apply to AI and the observed attacks on different AI systems. And there are great tools out there that will kind of help you detect those AI specific TTPs and prevent them from talking to your direct LLM. Just like we have API firewalls, or we have web app firewalls, right? It's just another tool in our arsenal. So we're not thinking everything that we do in security because of AI, right? We're taking our existing zero trust principles and we're using different perhaps tactics or different tools in order to effectuate our overall zero trust strategy when it comes to that AI protect surface that we're trying to manage.
Alex, did you have a question? I know you. I know Alex love this topic.
Yeah, we have spoke about human beings, about AI collaboration. So some believe that AI will eventually replace human roles in cybersecurity, while others believe it will serve as a tool for enhancing human capabilities. What's your stance on this in ratio to zero trust? Do you think
Yeah,
will
I,
be something, I don't know, better than what it was in the past, let's say?
so I have read a ton of AI books, so I'm going to give you all another AI book. If you only read one book on AI this year, read Rise of the Machines. Click that QR code. If you read two books on AI, my favorite book on AI is actually Gary Kasparov's book. It's called Deep Thinking. So Kasparov was the chess grandmaster that was beaten, the last grandmaster to be beaten by AI. IBM's Big Blue or Deep Blue, sorry. And that story is really interesting for a number of reasons. Most people haven't heard the full story. I definitely read the book, but here's a spoiler. IBM cheated. They hired apparently a Russian-speaking security guard to be in the room while Kasparov was planning his moves. And the IBM team, I guess, has come out to say they hard-coded the move so that when Kasparov did his one pivotal moment, the AI didn't automatically make that move. And I guess other chess emulators that were programmed like Deep Blue don't play that same move in the same game if you play that. So corporate interests, right? Interestingly, are really directing, just like they always have, the way AI is being developed. And I think we should take those interests with a grain of salt. But kind of more to answer your question, Kasparov himself could be really against AI, right? He could have some sour grapes, as you might imagine. Every great chess grandmaster today, every single one of them uses AI to prepare.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
correct.
so what are we going to do as defenders? Well, is it going to impact some people's jobs? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, again, the economy's tightening up, so I mean, how do you tell really whether AI replaced my job or not?
I think some others will be affected or impacted. Some others not. I could say.
Yeah, but again, I think it's only going to augment our own humans' ability to make a difference.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree. I see it as, I know me and Alex, we've talked about this before, but I definitely see it as augmenting, our capabilities and just making us better.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, there's the threats, in the long term of what it can do. But for what we're seeing today, I mean, the utilize of ChatGPT and some of the other stuff and how it's changing the work environment just for not my wife, for my friends and everything else and how they're utilizing, it is definitely augmenting and making them do their job better.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
I agree on that. At least I don't know on what am I doing. Sometimes on the reports I'm working with AI, and it's helping me a lot. I'm not providing any info that it's let's say more related to the privacy, more related to the client side. But in terms of numbers, just I'm putting him and I tell him, look, I want this in a different way, and those numbers to be calculated in a different way, and then to have the details more more explained, more detailed, let's say, because
So I'm not supposed to put my social security number in there?
no,
No? Oh,
don't put social social security. Don't put any
no,
details to your ID. That's very
yeah.
important because I don't trust on that thing. I mean, might OpenAI say many things,
Yeah.
but I don't trust. I mean, this is how I am. The security guy will not trust many things, many tools, even though. And it's like that. Only if you let's say if that tool is not connected to outside world and it's inside of your infrastructure and you know everything about your infrastructure. This is how it works.
I'd love to know, George. You just came back from RSA, and obviously a lot of cool stuff was there. Love to get your thoughts on some of the talk, the technology, and kind of your take on what you saw there. Some of the new stuff. You could even talk with vendors. That it's up to you, but some of maybe new stuff you saw that was kind of related to zero trust that really kind of knocked you out.
Yeah. So again, I mentioned the data governance tools. I'm not going to mention any vendor names, but there's some really cool things that will augment your existing data compliance things. So they sit on top of Purview that help automate the process, that help reduce false positives. I'm also really big on enterprise browsers. Um, so bringing us back to zero trust and looking for gaps. Well, browsers are the biggest free tool that every employee has. We have daily patching for security vulnerabilities within our browsers. Our EDR tools don't give us any insight into what browsers are doing, and so I think now today 95 or 100% sometimes of an end user's interaction with all of the different things, and the computers are browser driven, right?
Yeah.
Outlook is now a web browser based front end.
Oh, yeah.
Teams, right? Slack, all of these are web browsers, and we have zero insight into what's going on, particularly now that organizations are adopting the TLS 1.3 or Google's Quick Protocol, totally completely encrypted. Even if it's TLS 1.2, not every organization is doing decryption. So your next gen firewalls just aren't providing as much capability as maybe they used to that we relied on.
Yeah.
So I think that's forcing us to maybe take a harder look at enterprise browsers. And there's some out there that have a dedicated browser, but I like the ones that have browser extensions that allow me to enforce policy on whatever browser that my users might want to operate, because I don't want to have a philosophical argument about I have to use this other browser because that's again, I want to be able to enforce my security policies equally everywhere. People forget about malicious browser extensions and what a pervasive threat that is.
Yeah.
It's the last line of defense. If somebody clicks a link and I could intercept that by my enterprise browser, gosh, that's amazing. Preventing drive-by downloads or sock goulash kind of attacks. Once you start thinking from a zero trusty kind of perspective about browsers, well, why haven't we been doing this all along? Anyway, I kind of got excited about that, but yeah, I'll kind of leave it there since we're running out of time.
No, this is good, and I always want to. If someone could take one takeaway from your book, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I think the exciting part about Rise of the Machines is just that I think we're at this really pivotal moment with AI, and we can make a difference. The thing to take away is, like, look at where we're at in the history of the world. Like, we should all be playing with this. It's so much fun. I get excited. I mean, I feel rejuvenated almost about how I'm using technology today, because AI makes it fun. And I think playing with it as a security practitioner also has this added benefit. Like, I kind of understand it, and it's so much easier to help protect something when you're more comfortable and familiar with it. So, if anything, as security professionals, we ought to be on a leading edge of messing around with this stuff and really using it to get out in front of the bad guys. So have fun out there. Read the book, yeah, definitely sit down and play around with it.
Awesome. Well, George, thank you so much for your time, everyone. So the book is on. What does it get released again? What is the release date?
It'll be available on June 10th, just a little over a month away.
But can they pre-order with that link?
Yeah, absolutely. So find it on Amazon, and it'll get shipped right to you when it comes out.
Awesome. George, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you all so much for having me.
Yeah, everyone, thanks George for attending. Alex, like always, thank you so much.
You're welcome anytime. And everyone, please don't forget to follow us on our LinkedIn page, as well on our group, and as well on YouTube. We are also over there in case if you want to rewatch this video. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much again.